Story 1. The Unmarked Submarine. It was the summer of 2015, and I had been working as a deep-sea diver for a private company that conducted underwater surveys. We were far out in the Atlantic, investigating a newly discovered shipwreck that lay almost 500 meters below the surface. The ocean at that depth was pitch black, and the water seemed to swallow the light from our diving gear. Our team consisted of 3 divers, each equipped with cameras to document the wreck. It was an old ship, mostly rotted away, but still intriguing enough to keep us combing through the debris. As we carefully explored the wreck, my flashlight beam caught something unusual, something that didn't belong. Just beyond the edge of the shipwreck, I saw the faint outline of a large cylindrical shape. I swam closer, my curiosity growing with each stroke. It was a submarine, an old one. The hull was covered in algae and barnacles, and there were no markings or serial numbers on it. It was as if the ocean had erased its identity. I called over my teammates, who swam toward the submarine to inspect it. As we circled the structure, we noticed the submarine's hatch was slightly ajar, an ominous gap that led into complete darkness. One of my colleagues, Ian, suggested we go inside to take a look. Despite my unease, I agreed, figuring it could lead to a significant discovery. We squeezed through the narrow hatch and into the submarine's interior. The place was in ruins. Rust covered the walls, and debris floated around us. We ventured deeper inside, our flashlights cutting through the thick, murky water. The further we went, the more we noticed an odd sensation. The temperature seemed to drop dramatically, and a strange pressure pushed against us, making it feel like we were being squeezed from all directions. As we reached what looked like the control room, Ian's flashlight beam suddenly flickered and died. The darkness swallowed him in an instant, and I felt panic surge through me. "Ian, are you all right?" I shouted into the comms, but there was no response. Then I heard a sound, something like a low, vibrating hum resonating from deeper within the submarine. It was rhythmic, almost like chanting. My remaining teammate, Jessica, began to breathe heavily over the comms, her voice trembling. I think I see something moving," she whispered. Before I could ask what she meant, a sudden force knocked me sideways. My flashlight spun through the water, casting chaotic shadows against the rusted walls. That's when I saw them, dark figures floating just beyond the edge of the light. They weren't fish or any kind of marine life I'd ever seen. They were humanoid shapes, featureless, moving toward us with an unnatural jerking motion. Jessica screamed through the comms, and I could hear Ian's voice again, but he was muttering something incoherent, like he was in a trance. I turned and swam for the hatch as fast as I could, not daring to look back. Jessica was right behind me, but as we neared the exit, I felt a hand, ice cold, wrap around my ankle. I kicked desperately, managing to free myself, and burst out of the submarine. I swam toward the surface, my lungs burning and my heart racing. When we reached the boat, I looked around for Ian, but he never surfaced. The search team combed the area for hours but found no trace of him. The submarine was sealed off afterward, left to rot in the darkness where it belonged. But every now and then, divers in the area report hearing a faint humming sound coming from the depths below, as if the sea itself was whispering of the horrors that lay in its black waters. Story 2. The Deep-Sea Creature. I was part of a marine biology research team that specialized in studying life at extreme ocean depths. We were stationed on a research vessel off the coast of Japan, where we planned to explore one of the deepest parts of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. The descent into the trench took hours, and as we descended, I couldn't help but feel the overwhelming weight of the ocean pressing down on us. The submersible was equipped with bright lights and a high-definition camera, which streamed back to the ship in real time. At nearly 36,000 feet, we reached the ocean floor, where the landscape was alien, dark, and barren, with scattered hydrothermal vents releasing plumes of hot water. We had been surveying the area for about an hour, when something unusual appeared on the monitor. A large shape, almost the size of our submersible, moving slowly in the distance. It looked like nothing we had documented before. It had a long, serpentine body covered in translucent, gelatinous skin that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Its eyes, black and soulless, stared directly into the camera. We tried to steer the submersible closer to get a better look, but as soon as we did, the creature darted away with startling speed. My colleague Mark, who was piloting the sub, tried to follow it, but the creature seemed to disappear into the pitch-black void. Just as we were about to give up, a thud echoed through the hull, followed by another. The submersible shook as if something massive was hitting it from outside. The lights flickered, and the camera feed briefly cut out. When it returned, the creature was no longer in the distance. It was right in front of us, staring into the viewport. Its mouth opened slowly, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. And then, without warning, it lunged at the submersible, slamming into the viewport with a force that nearly cracked the glass. Mark scrambled to ascend, desperate to put distance between us and whatever this thing was. As we rose, the creature followed, circling the sub like a predator playing with its prey. It let out a sound, a deep rumbling noise that resonated through the water, making our bones vibrate. The lights flickered again, and for a moment, we were plunged into darkness. When the lights came back on, the creature was gone. We raced to the surface, but the sense of dread lingered. When we reached the ship, the exterior of the submersible was covered in deep scratches, and sections of the metal were bent inward, as if something had tried to tear it apart. We reviewed the footage, hoping to find an explanation, but the video was corrupted, nothing but static and garbled images. The scientists dismissed it as a technical malfunction, but Mark and I knew what we saw, and whatever that thing was, it was still out there, lurking in the darkest depths of the ocean. Story 3: The Abandoned Oil Rig. A few years ago, I was working as a deep-sea welder, hired to inspect and repair underwater structures. My latest assignment took me to an abandoned oil rig in the North Sea. The rig had been decommissioned for over a decade, and now it was just a rusting hulk surrounded by cold, dark water. The job was supposed to be straightforward: descend to the base of the rig, inspect the supports, and repair any structural damage. As I dropped into the water, the rig loomed above me like a ghost, its massive metal legs vanishing into the black abyss below. As I descended to the rig's base, I noticed something strange. The water seemed to grow darker, even with the powerful lights on my helmet. It was like a cloud of ink was spreading through the water, making it hard to see. The deeper I went, the more oppressive the darkness became, and I could swear I heard faint whispers, though I told myself it was just the current playing tricks on my ears. Reaching the lowest part of the rig, I started my inspection. The metal was corroded and covered in barnacles, but something else caught my eye: long, deep gouges in the steel, as if something with enormous claws had raked across it. I tried to brush it off, focusing on my task, but a nagging feeling of being watched crept over me. Then I saw it. Just beyond the beam of my light, something moved. It was too large to be a fish. Its body was slender and unnaturally long, disappearing into the darkness. I shined my light toward it, and for a brief moment, I saw what looked like a pale, human-like face, staring back at me from the shadows, its eyes reflecting the light with an eerie glow. I felt a chill run down my spine and quickly turned to ascend, but before I could move, the creature darted forward, its elongated arms stretching toward me. It wasn't a person. Its skin was a sickly gray, covered in scales, and its mouth opened to reveal rows of sharp, needle-like teeth. I kicked away and began to ascend as fast as I could. The creature followed, its long limbs propelling it through the water with unnatural speed. I could feel it getting closer, the water around me growing colder as it closed the distance. Just as I was nearing the surface, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. The creature's claw had grazed me, tearing through the fabric of my diving suit. I thrashed and kicked desperately, breaking the surface and pulling myself onto the platform above. I turned back to the water just in time to see the creature slip back into the darkness below, its pale face vanishing into the abyss. When I made it back onto the rig, I inspected my leg. A deep scratch ran down my calf, and the fabric around it was shredded. The company dismissed my report, claiming it was likely a large fish or a trick of the light. But I knew what I saw. There was something down there, something unnatural, and whatever it was, it didn't want me near that oil rig.